Hey, let's talk briefly about divers and the different type of divers that are out there and the types of line that we use with them generally and just kind of how we use them. So first off, we'll talk about not as commonly used, more of a Lake Erie thing. It's called jet divers, or actually this one is a Tripsy diver from Dreamweaver. There are also jet divers as well from Lure Jensen. And we generally use these more on Lake Erie to pull worm harnesses. You can use them to pull spoons as well. Now, unlike a deeper diver or a dipsy diver, they don't angle out to the side at all. All they do is dive just straight down. So we use them with planer boards. They come up in a 10 size up to, I believe this is a 50 size. The way that they have them formulated for the most part with their dive curves is a 10 size will generally max out at 10 feet down with 100 feet of line out, and a 50 size will get you down to 50 feet with 100 feet of line out. So that's jet divers. They work well. The more common type of divers that we use, they're generally called dipsies, is the common slang for them. Lure Jensen was the first brand to come out with them many years ago, the Dipsy diver. And since there's been some other brands that have come out with their different versions. Walker in the early 2000s came out with the deeper diver, and it is now actually owned by Dreamweaver, and it's very similar to the Dipsy diver with a couple little different twists on it. As well, over the last few years, another company is called the Chinook diver, and it functions differently, but it still does the same thing as your other divers. And then we also have a slide diver. This is a smaller one, but a slide diver is kind of neat because unlike the other ones, you can adjust your leader length. You can be as short as you want or as long as you want to have your stretch behind the diver. So that's one advantage that the slide diver has. Now they also come in different sizes, and depending on the situation, it's going to dictate what size that you use. This is a very small, deeper diver. We don't use them very often, but when we do, it's usually early in the springtime when we're fishing 15, 20 feet of water and we're pulling spoons, and they're good. They're good to use if we don't have short. I generally like using a 1 or a 2 color lead core line to get my spoons out. But if you don't have that, this will work very well. You can just use this with monofilament or braid line. But with 20-pound test monofilament and just 50 feet out, it'll get your spoons down and out and away from the boat. And they're very small. You can actually use these on planer boards. We don't really recommend using the larger size divers with planer boards because there's a lot of pull. But you can just run these straight down and run them off a planer board, and they work quite well. We catch a lot of browns using these size. There's a couple other smaller sizes before you get to the regular ones between the different brands, and they also work well when you're fishing anywhere from 20 to 40 feet of water, and you're not necessarily trying to get down very deep. So there's some between Dreamweaver and Lure Jensen, they have some different sizes too. That'll help you fish the shallower water more effectively. The more common size diver that we use, it's called generally a number 1 size diver. That's from Lure Jensen, or a 107 diver from Dreamweaver. And this is the more common size that we use for most of the season. It'll fish very effectively, in 30 to about 70 feet of water. The type of line that we use with the divers is going to dictate to how far you get down with them. Braid line is commonly used. It's very user-friendly to use for the most part. Walleye anglers will often use 30, maybe 40 pound test line. On Lake Ontario for the braid line, we like to use 50. Braid has its drawbacks though on Lake Ontario. Generally in the summer when the water starts to warm up, there are sea fleas that accumulate in the water column, and they can build up on your line and they can become a nuisance. That's where we start to use a 7-strand 30-pound test wire line. You know, there are different brands out there, and not only does the wire repel the fleas, but it also increases your depth using these divers. So you can use wire year-round. Some guys will have different setups. They'll use braid divers when they're fishing shallower, and then they'll have wire setups when they're trying to fish deeper. When you're also trying to fish deeper, then we're into a mag-sized diver. Dreamweaver calls this, I believe, a 124 size, and Lure Jensen calls it their mag size. So, and it'll get you down 80 plus feet. You probably get them down a little bit further if you're fishing them like on a number 1 setting with wire line, of course. So lots of different divers out there, all different applications for both lakes as well. If we're talking about color, there are times where colored divers can really help, and sometimes there are days where they don't. Many guys I know like to use black and clear divers because they don't want to put a lot of thought into what effect the divers are having, but there definitely are some days where a colored diver can really be effective, especially if you're fishing it with a spoon or on Lake Erie with a worm harness, because this will kind of act as your attractor. When you're fishing a flasher fly or a flasher and a meat rig behind a diver, your flasher is obviously your attractor, and then your meat rig or your fly is the intended target. So don't rule out color. There are some days where it can be very helpful. If you got any other questions about divers, come on by the shop. We'll be happy to help you.